My name's Chris, and this is my 1991 Citroen CX 25 GTi Turbo 2, the world's longest car name. I've had this since 2013. I bought it when I lived in London. I bought it from the kind of recognised the CX specialist at the time, and it had been restored to a degree by another well-known CX specialist. But I spent maybe 9 months chasing various issues with it. I mean, ostensibly, the technology involved in it is fairly old, because everyone talks about the suspension being complicated, which the pump for the hydraulics runs the suspension and the steering and the brakes. But it's pretty old tech, because it's the same tech that was used in the DS, which was introduced in 1955. So by the time they put it in this in 1975, it was fairly robust. But it does take a wee bit of fettling. So I chased around some hydraulic leaks and a few bits and pieces underneath, and the electrics are not particularly great quality. So those are always something to keep an eye on. But since I did all that, it's been remarkably trouble-free. I've never really had any bother with it. It's never let me down. I've never had to be recovered. And when I bought it, it had maybe 56,000 miles on it, and now it's just turned 80. There was a gap of a year because I sold it when I moved away from London and back to Glasgow. I had no garage. But as soon as I got myself sorted in Glasgow, I bought it back. And it was about a month before our wedding, and we took it to France and Spain on honeymoon, which was amazing, because even in France you never see them, and every time you stop at a set of traffic lights, someone will come over and say, "Ah, monsieur, les voitures," which is a really great thrill. People always love to see it, and you often get stopped at petrol stations and someone's dad had one, someone's granda had one, or they had a BX, or they had a GS, and I love to hear those sorts of stories. And I've always really loved French cars. I've had several French cars, my favourite being the SM, and I kind of realised about 10 years ago that I was never going to be able to afford an SM, because prices went through the roof. So the CX at the time was something of a consolation prize, but I don't really see myself without it now. I've spent far too long with it. And my wife wouldn't let me sell it either. She loves it, and my daughter loves it. My 2.5-year-old daughter loves it. She has just learned to say CX. So she loves going out in it. We take it on holiday as much as we can. Last year, when we were allowed to travel for a couple of weeks, we took it to Dorset. We did about 2,500 miles in 2 weeks. Again, no bother at all. One of the things that I spent the most money on was the air conditioning. George, the AC wizard from Dunfermline, name check for you, George. He spent maybe a year chasing air conditioning trouble, and we finally got it to work. So that makes it way more comfortable to drive on long journeys. The longest of which in one go was coming back from honeymoon, when we left the south of France at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning and got back to Glasgow at 3 o'clock on the Sunday morning. And we never stopped, apart from across the channel, obviously. We had got a hotel just north of London, but we just decided to keep going. It was so good. And those sorts of road trips are where the car really excels. It's not really built for driving twisty mountain roads, although we've done that in it. It's really great on the motorway and driving for long distances with no trouble whatsoever. As I say, I don't think I'll ever be without it now. It's the car.